Okay, good afternoon, class. Now let's actually start with the VRIO framework. Okay, let's go a little more in details of it. So, what is VRIO framework? VRIO framework, it's a tool which is used by any firm, which helps them to analyze their internal resources and the capabilities that they have. So in order to find out if they can be a source of sustained competitive advantages, okay, the internal source resources and capabilities that a firm has, whether it can be help in sustaining competitive advantage for the firm, right? And in order to understand the sources of competitive advantage, firms usually what they do, they are using many tools to analyze their external and external environment, external forces. Like how do they environment? They use Porter's 5 forces, best analysis. Internal, they use value chain, BCG matrix. And one of the tools that analyzes the firm's internal resources is also VRIO analysis, which was actually developed by Barney in 1991, where in his work, Firm Resources and Sustained Competitive Advantage, where he identified there are 4 attributes that firm's resources must possess, has to possess any resource in order to become a source of sustainable competitive advantage. Okay, and these resources, what are these attributes? One is valuable. V stands for valuable. R for rare. I for imperfectly imitable. And O for when we talk of non-substitutable. VRIO, right? So it was actually N. It's N. Original framework was called VRIN. VRIN. So VRIN. Then it became VRIO, right? VRIO, later on it became VRIO. So VRIO here stands for valuable, V for valuable, R for rare. Then I, it's difficult to imitate, that costly to imitate. And O, where it talks of whether a firm is a firm organized to capture the value of the resources. Okay, so a resource or capability that meets all the 4 requirements can bring in sustained competitive advantage for the organization. So these are the 4 things: value, rarity, imitability, and organization. VRIO. Valuable, right? If it is no, then means competitive disadvantage. If it is yes, then comes up from rare. Is it rare? If it's no, that means it's competitive parity. And if it's yes, then it says of is it costly to imitate? If it's no, that means temporary competitive advantage. If it is yes, then comes up, is the firm organized to capture the value? No means again temporary competitive advantage. If it is yes, that means sustained competitive advantage. So let's go into details of this. Valuable, when we say valuable, that is if the resource that of the firm, whether it adds value by helping a firm to exploit the opportunities and also protect against the threats, right? That is, if it is for yes, then it is valuable. Okay, valuable because it helps to increase the perceived customer value. That's why it's valuable. It increases the customer's value, right? And how is it done? Like either by increasing differentiation strategy or decreasing the price. So either using differentiation strategy or cost leadership strategy. Next comes up is rare. Like can the resources be acquired by one or very few companies? If it's, then it's rare, right? Which is rare and valuable resources. What happens? They actually help in giving a temporary competitive advantage, right? But if it's a situation where more companies can actually have that resource, then what happens? Then it's equal competitive parity. Everyone is at the same level, right? Third comes up is costly to imitate. When we say whether a resource is costly, if it has to be imitated by other organizations, right? means what of resource which is costly. What happens? Costly to imitate means what? It can't be imitated. It can be substituted by some other product, right? So then what happens if it is difficult to imitate? It's valuable, it's rare and difficult to imitate. Then what happens? The firm achieves a sustained competitive advantage. Okay. And the last that comes up is organized to capture value. Resources just by themselves having advantage is not enough, right? So it what happens? It also has to capture the value, right? The firm has to organize it to utilize that value, capitalize on that value. A firm which is organized, but means what, has proper management system, process, policy, structure, culture, will be able to capitalize on this resources which are valuable, rare, and difficult to imitate. And only then can the firm have a sustained competitive advantage. Right. So using the tool, how do you do it? First is to identify rare, valuable, rare, and costly to imitate resources, right? So resources can be tangible, intangible. Tangible means what you can see, physical things, right? And whereas what happens, intangible are which you can't see. That's a reputation, trademark, property, intellectual property rights, right? So what happens is one has to be looking for, when we talk of rare, valuable, rare, costly to imitate, one has to look into the intangible assets. Tangible assets, it's very easy, right? So tangible assets are rarely the source of competitive advantage. Next comes up is to find out if the company is organized to exploit the resources or not. Right. So one has to understand, find answers for this, that whether company has effective strategic management process, are there effective imitation, motivation, and reward system. Does the company's culture reward innovation have a culture? The company's culture have reward innovative ideas, whether the organizational structure is designed to use a resource, and are there excellent management and control systems. Third is to protect the resources. Now, when you know your resource is very unique, that has all the four VRIO attributes, you need to protect it, right? Why? Because that is the source of your sustained competitive advantage. So what has to be done is to ensure that the top management is aware of such resource and suggest how it can be used to lower cost or to differentiate products and services. And then you should think of ideas of how to make it more costly to imitate, right? So that competitors find it difficult to imitate, right? Then if it is very easy, if the competitors actually start imitating, then it will not be rare anymore. Okay, next comes up is the next step is to constantly review the VRIO resources and capabilities. Just having the resources not enough. Value changes over time, and so it needs to be reviewed constantly to find out if they are as valuable as they were once before, right? And competitors would also want to achieve that same advantage. They would want to replicate. So what happens? If it's easy to replicate, it's no more rare. So the VRIO resources capabilities that are developed should be reviewed, and it needs to be protected, and it also needs to be upgraded at times from time to time. So VRIO model, this is it: valuable, rare, hard to imitate, organized to exploit. Now valuable plus rare means, as I said, temporary competitive advantage, and you have all three, that is sustainable competitive advantage. And when we have all four, that gives you core competency, right? This is the same thing, same model again, written in this way. Okay, this is an example, VRIO example of VRIO framework. Company using it successfully is Google. Right, so this is the details about it, about Google, right? Okay, now again, this we talk of Google, how they have been using it, right? So that's all that we have for you in this session, right? If you have any other questions, please let me know in class, right?